Welcome to the Excel Pod. Welcome to the Untied Podcast, where we unravel the knots of life with faith, wisdom, and encouragement, because together we're here to untie from tradition and embrace truth through powerful Bible teaching. My name is Garrett Bernithi. I'm one of the hosts of the show, along with my good buddy Corey, and we are bringing you another episode for Season 3. This is episode 8. We're going to be continuing the theme of the blessed man as we look at Psalm 52. And for those who are doing a study alongside with us, or would like to go back and read some of the things that we're talking about, you can also connect 1 Samuel chapter 22, verses 9 through 19, which is the connection point for Psalm 52. We're grateful that you have joined us today, and hope that your week is going well. And man, we're approaching Thanksgiving very, very quickly. So I know that there's always a lot going on as we enter the holiday season, a lot of excitement, a lot of joy, a lot of thankfulness around this time of year. And so we're definitely thankful for all who are tuning or listening in any way, shape, or form. And so thank you for joining us, and we're going to go ahead and get this thing kicked off as we normally do with one of our favorite parts of this, what's been cooking. So, Corey, what's going on with you, brother?
Well, not much. We're just working on getting ready for gun season and Thanksgiving and everybody coming home for the holidays and all of those kinds of things. So I've been down and out with my neck and shoulder, so I haven't been doing any smoking or grilling or cooking much. I saw this an Instagram post about how to do a copycat. If you've ever been to Dollywood, one of the things you have to experience while you're at Dollywood is the pull apart cinnamon bread. And it was a copycat recipe for that I made last night, which was pretty good. I don't do a whole lot of baking, usually more cooking than baking, but
yeah.
Baking is more like science. You have to be very precise. It's a very, very, very close recipe, very slight differences that will make a cookie or a Christmas ornament. So, you got to be very precise about what you're doing when you're baking. But cooking is like art. You put a pinch of that in there, dash of that, taste it, put a little bit more of that in there. So I'm usually more of a cooker than a baker, but anyway.
I have not been to Dollywood, but we went basically up to the entrance of Dollywood one year. We were just kind of trolling the strip and doing a few things, and we were at polishing the pulpit, so we were just kind of taking the afternoon to do a few things, and didn't have time to go into Dollywood. I would have loved to have done that, but we didn't. But did some of the other things, the Branson style stuff over there. But maybe someday we'll go to Dollywood. That'd be a lot of fun.
Well, Dollywood is my favorite theme park. It has great rides, great shows. It is the most family-friendly theme park I reckon there is, because there's no alcohol. It's the home, actually, of the Gospel Music Hall of Fame is there at Dollywood. But there's a brother up in Paducah. His wife always has said, and it's just stuck in my head, she said, every time I picture heaven, I think of Dollywood. Everything is so clean, and there's gospel music coming out of the rocks and the bushes, so I don't know if that's what heaven's going to be like exactly, but it's very clean, it's very nice, and it's just, and it's been I think for the last 5 years, the number one theme park in America.
Huh. I I wonder how close that Silver Dollar City would be to Dollywood. You know, obviously it's got to be a little bit different naturally, but
Well,
the two
what
towns
Dollywood,
are so similar.
yes, and what Dollywood was Silver Dollar City.
Okay.
And then Dolly bought it, and she began expanding it. So
Yeah.
it's got the Silver Dollar City part as far as like the how to blow glass and how to do the blacksmithing stuff and some of those old timey kind of things. They've got an old coal steam train that goes around the park and some of that kind of thing. But they've just expanded it to the next level with some of the rides and stuff that they've done there.
Well, I love that part of the country. It is that whole area in there is just really, really awesome. Sevierville and all the different villes through there and that little 10-mile stretch or whatever it is really cool. Of course, the largest knife store in the world is at the exit of I-40, and naturally you have to stop there. It's full of everything, but you know, I think they just keep adding on so they can keep that name of the largest knife store in the world. But man, they've got all kinds of stuff, and so we always try to, if we can, we stop there. And of course, now they've got the new Buc-ee's right there. That's the biggest one I think in the world, and then you just keep on going and go right down to all that stuff. But man, it is beautiful in there. I love that part of the country. But you know, also up in Branson, that's a really cool part of the country too. So it's really neat, those two places, and you know, and the connection and theme, for sure.
Yep, and the Ozark Mountains are pretty too. If you're up that way, I'll put in a plug for a buddy of mine. The Great Smoky Mountains Church of Christ is right there in Pigeon Forge on 449 that goes out to Dollywood. I think it is. But the Great Smoky Mountains Church of Christ, my fellow classmate at Bear Valley, Dale Babinski, is the minister there, and I love Dale and love his preaching. And so, if you're ever up that way and looking for a good place to worship, that's a good place to. Lots of good places to worship up there, but I think you'll be encouraged to be there and listen to Dale preach too. So
yeah, that's very cool.
And when you're done, you can run right down to Dollywood. So
maybe this is a future edition that we'll be adding in to name all of the good places to worship in all these different. You know, that could really grow into something. You know, we may have to travel to some of these places.
Business trip.
Needed business trips to you know, check out all of the good congregations in these areas and promote the good work that's going on there. I'm really for that. That would be awesome.
Yeah. The only reason we came to Dollywood is because we love the Lord.
That's right.
You know.
That's right. You know, the Lord needs to be spread in every place amongst all people. And so those who are you know, doing mission work in the Bahamas and Hawaii and all, I ain't mad at you. I mean,
just give us a call.
Give us a call. I mean,
we do a live taping of Untied.
Yeah, on site. I mean, Garrett and Corey we'll fly on down there and do what we need to do, man. It's good stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well,
you think about those initials, Garrett and Corey, GC. What's the initials for the Gospel Call or the Great Commission? You know,
it's a sign.
I think so. if you're looking for one, it is.
It is a sign, and that's how we choose to see this. Is the gospel of Christ? You know, there's all kinds of, you know, GC is used in a lot of different ways, and
that's right.
You know, it's a sign. So that's our story, and we're sticking to it.
That's right. That's right.
Oh man. Who knows what people are going to think of us today? Oh, well, we are, speaking of all these good signs, we are entering into almost, I guess next week will be Thanksgiving week and the week of the turkey. And man, there's really just a lot to be thankful for. I know in our life, and I know that you are in your life, and we really are a blessed people. And so exciting to all that comes around with Thanksgiving. You mentioned gun season, so man, I'm super ready for to be able to go hunting. I've not been at all this year, and it's driving me crazy. But gearing up to go out and see if we can get a big boy. My uncle sent me a picture yesterday of a good one that was floating around his place, and so we both got the itch to go and get us a good one. But really
guns and camouflage. Guns and camouflage. Another GC.
Yeah, yes.
It's everywhere.
It's everywhere. The sign grows. When it's there, it's there.
Only in the directions we want it to, but it grows.
Yeah. Good coffee. How about that? There's
good coffee.
Good coffee goes with everything.
Although that's almost like, is there such thing as bad coffee? I know somebody's probably saying yes, but I'd rather have bad coffee as no coffee. So,
well, that's true.
Coffee,
but
maybe GC.
Some coffee that's not as good, like that's really not as good, it's kind of a bummer.
Ground coffee.
Yes.
We could say there are better coffees than others. Yes, I realize that
there are levels of good coffee.
Yeah,
levels of coffee in general, and I think that's important to note.
Yeah, there's godly coffee, which is hot.
Coffee. Yeah,
and then there's coffee milkshakes that people drink.
That's what my wife drinks. It's coffee milkshake. Well, yeah, I guess you could call it that. It's just
you're fixing to really get in trouble. You start talking about your wife.
Oh man, I love my wife. I'm thankful for my wife. I don't agree with her coffee decisions, but oh man, but she loves her coffee too. So she likes good ground coffee. So that's excellent.
Yep.
Oh man, who knows where this episode's going? Well, you'll like this. I am, as we get ready for Thanksgiving, I put the turkey. My grandmother said, "Can you smoke a turkey this year?" And I said, "Yes, ma'am, I will." And so she gave it to me, and I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I've cooked it all, kind of basically cooked them one way because everybody liked it, and our group's not huge turkey fans, but we just always get a turkey breast and do that. But as I was looking around to see what different types of things that I could do, I found this one, and it fits perfectly. I'm using Meat Church products, and so I'm going to brine the turkey in what's called bird baptism. It's all working out great.
Amen.
And then I'm using some honey hog barbecue as a seasoning on it, and which goes really well with any of that stuff. So going to brine it for 24 hours, going to put a little of that rub on there, and then baste it with a few other things as it cooks. But going to spatchcock it, put it on there, baste it every 30 minutes while it cooks for few hours, and see how it comes out. So see if that old bird baptism works. It comes highly recommended. So it could either really make Thanksgiving or really ruin it. I mean,
yeah, I saw a thing the other day of how to frog cock one. Have you seen that?
Mm-mm.
How to frog cock one?
No.
Instead of breaking it open at the breast, you're breaking it open on the backside, and it kind of makes it end up looking like a frog.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, I thought about trying that this year, but we do more than the turkey breast. In fact, if I could get a turkey without the breast, that would be fine with me, because that, to me, I'd much rather have the dark meat anyway.
Yeah.
But I'm going to do a turkey we'll go to, at lunch, we'll have it at our house with Melody's parents. And I'm doing a turkey and a ham. And I was inspired by you, my brother, to suggest, how about we do some ribs?
Yes, sir. Yes.
And so I'm gonna do some ribs too. And
That's
then
exactly
I'm doing
what I'm doing. We're doing turkey, ham, and then my uncle's cooking ribs this year. So
that's what I'm gonna do. And then Thanksgiving night we go to my parents with all of our family, and I do the turkey for over there too. So, but anyway, it'll be a lot of cooking going on, whole lot of cooking going on. But Garrett and Gordon will be home, so they can be there to help me. So,
that's a good meal right there. That's a good meal right there.
well, especially when you put it with Melody dressing, and she'll make green beans. And I know you're probably thinking green beans, but Melody's green beans are really something special. It's in part because she puts bacon grease and beef broth in there, so they, chicken broth maybe instead of beef broth. But
Yeah.
and then
Do you do the whole green bean or do you cut it up?
cut up, yeah,
Cut up. Kristen does the whole, and the way that she cooks
and cook them till they're
we really like
soft
'em.
too.
Yeah.
Now these crunchy green bean eater people are. I'm not a deer or a cow. Give me something that's been cooked,
Oh, you crunchy green bean people.
I just don't understand it.
Oh, man.
Anyway, and then she'll make sweet potatoes, and I think her mama's going to bring fresh corn, and her mama wants slaw. She has to have slaw with her Thanksgiving meal. Her mama eats slaw, like she has to have slaw with spaghetti. She says that's a normal thing, but I've never at Olive Garden seen that to be one of the menu items that they offered. But anyway, she's bringing slaw, and we'll have all kind of desserts and eat too much and watch football and fall asleep, and
Oh, yeah.
But
Yeah. Well, it's gonna be a good week. It'll be a busy week at the first, getting everything. Both I know both of us will be working to try and get all our stuff done so we can do all that.
Yep.
But man, I love Thanksgiving. I really love Christmas. That's my favorite. But I really just, I love Thanksgiving as well. Just the time of year. Fall is my favorite period. So then do a little bit of deer hunting on top of that. It's just great. It's really good.
it's like, what can we put together to make a holiday for Corey? Hunting, food, family, godliness. Did I say football? I don't know if I did or not. There's it's like everything that I love combined in one day. So
That's true. And there's a lot of that in one day.
yeah.
Several.
And then the
football
next day
games.
is all about shopping. So it was the best of times and the worst of times. So
Yeah. Well, we're actually doing Thursday with Kristen's family, and then Friday is with my family. So we've got 2 days that we'll be doing that. And my Kristen likes to go Black Friday shopping and all that stuff too, and so I'm sure she'll do a little bit of that, and just kind of goes along with it. I do not care to do that.
no.
Can't do it.
I'll actually start my cooking on Wednesday. So I'm sure you will too. So to be ready by lunch on Thursday. So it would cause us a little bit of problems as far as setting up equipment and stuff, but it would be kind of cool if we could maybe record next Wednesday from right beside our smokers and grills going.
That would be awesome.
It would be
could you do that at your house?
I could do that at my house.
We could do
a what's cooking right now section.
That's what we're going to do.
I think, by the way, you're talking about brining. I've tried brining and not brining, and I really can't tell any difference.
See, I've never brined a turkey. Like I said, we really, we've had turkeys throughout the years, but my family's never been big turkey. Kristen's family has. And so the ones that I had gotten previously were already brined whenever I got them. And like I said, they were just the breast, no legs. So this year will be my first time to do that. But from, watching the guys, like I like to watch the Meat Church guys. I like to watch, Heath Riles and Malcolm. Oh, good grief. I just lost his name. He's got Killer Hog Seasoning. It's barbecue. How to Barbecue Right is his deal. And there's so many others on there that I like to watch. And they all really like to brine. And they think that it brings out some, really makes it juicy and flavorful and, really helps it from being dry. So I thought, well, I'm going to try it, see how it goes. And then I might
it's a lot more work.
It, might not. I'm not really sure. So.
It's a lot more work. In part, finding a place that you can put a turkey with enough water to surround it for that long of a time. Either you're going to have to keep icing it down or take out shelves in your garage for refrigerator and put in there. And I just couldn't tell that big a difference.
I got a Yeti bucket.
Bucket? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and which I think they were on sale when I just actually got it the other day. I think it was $40. Maybe they weren't. Maybe it's typical, but I thought they were more expensive than that. But anyway, I got one, and those Yeti buckets are huge. And so I don't know if you could put a 25-pound bird in it. Maybe you could, probably could. The one we have, I think it's almost 13 pounds, so it's not a huge one. We got plenty of other meat that's going to be there. So,
but you're just doing the breast.
No, it's the whole thing.
Oh, the whole turkey?
Yeah, the whole thing. So it's not a huge bird. But it'll fit right in there, and I've already got some shells out in the fridge that it'll stay there and stay cool. So
yeah. Well, maybe you'll have better luck in that. I just couldn't, like I said, tell a huge amount of difference over just.
Did you do it whole style, or did you spatchcock it?
No, the whole thing.
Whole deal. Yeah. If you spatchcock it, that cuts down on your cook time too.
Cook time. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe that'll help. I don't know. We'll test it out and see how it goes.
Well, for me, just instead of cooking it in the oven, smoking it, the bacon, the butter, all of that kind of stuff, injecting it, it does so much better than cooking in the oven. Yeah. Like I said, I just couldn't tell a whole lot of difference but I know you're right. Everybody that I watch online, they all say to brine it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So maybe I'm not doing something right. I don't know.
We'll see. And that bird baptism brine that Meat Church has, that seems to be, everybody pushes their own stuff, but seems to be pretty popular. And they also have it. They sell a lot of that stuff.
Well, I'm all for full immersion baptism. All for full immersion.
That's it. Whether it's a bird, I mean, it's a good thing. It's a good thing. This
has nothing to do with cooking, but maybe to transition to other things. I don't know. But when Garrett was here in Tennessee in Greenfield, where he was the youth minister, they've got like maroon, burgundy, red carpet and all that, like a lot of churches do. It's been there since the 1980s.
Right.
And the baptistry had a leak. Garrett walks in one day. He sends me a video of the entire auditorium with about, 2 inches of water in it. And so they end up worshiping in their fellowship hall for a couple of weeks or whatever, just knowing that this was going to be the thing that would end up, we're going to have to rip all this carpet out. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people were kind of getting excited, and the people that they hired to get it all dried out and all, like, it's all fine. It's perfect. You don't have to replace anything.
Yeah.
So the next week, Brent Arnold, who's the preacher at Greenfield, gets up and he said, well, if you thought we were ever going to replace this carpet, not only is it the color of the blood of the Lamb, but now it's been fully immersed, so it's going to live forever. So there's some cases maybe where full immersion is not the best thing. I don't know, but
oh, that might be one where mold and rust do destroy. Oh man, well, you never know what we're going to be talking about every episode. This is just how Corey and I are. We're good buddies. We're guys. We talk about all this stuff. So, hopefully you as a listener, you're tuning in, you like some of this stuff, but you never know where we're going to go.
That's right.
Oh man. Well, speaking of spiritual things, such as baptism, we're going to transition over into our main study today, which is in Psalm 52. And so we're going to head over there. And if you are tuning in with us, whether it's YouTube or Excel TV, we certainly hope that you would subscribe to either or both of those. On Excel TV, we actually have several things, a lot of documentaries. We've got podcasts. We've got roundtable discussions. We've got workshops. We've got a lot of good stuff, and we're continually adding to that. So if you'd like to subscribe to that and check everything out, hope that you do that. You can go to our website, excelstonmore.net, and subscribe there. Or you can go over to our YouTube channel and you can watch our podcast there, of course, for free. But if you would subscribe and share, that would certainly help out the channel. If you are tuning in with us via your favorite podcasting platform and listening in, we hope that you'll be able to get your Bible out and turn to wherever we're going and make some notes or some mental notes if you're listening to this while you're driving. And just hope that this study will help you today and that all of our studies help you today or each week. Again, we're continuing on with the theme of the blessed man. We're looking at the Psalms of David and Psalm 52, trust in troubles. And so there's a lot of stuff that's going on with this. There's a lot of background that's going on in 1 Samuel 22, 9 through, well, the whole chapter really, as we find ourselves in Nob, and some priests are having a very bad day. And so there's some stuff that's going on. And so, Corey, why don't you introduce the psalm for us, and then we will hop into our study.
Okay. Well, he tells us in the introduction, the title of the actual psalm here connects it for us a little bit to the choir master, and there's several of these in a row, 52 through, I think it's 54 or 55, that are to the choir master, written by David. And but this one, he says, is a maskil of David, which is a teaching psalm. How do you pronounce the name there, the Edomite?
I don't know. Now I want to say Doge.
Well,
it's not Doge. Let's go with Doug.
Well, that's what I've heard a lot of people say. I have been told that it's like doag. So, like, think of pizza dough, and then ag, like a shortened form of agriculture. So doag is the way in Hebrew it would have been done. But anyway, Doag the Edomite came and told Saul that David has come to the house of Ahimelech. And so, as you said, this all brings us back specifically to 1 Samuel 22, but also to 1 Samuel 21, where kind of some of this begins really. But the Edomite herdsman, Doag or Doug or Doge, however you say his name, David is on the run from Saul, and he saw him speaking with Ahimelech, and that Ahimelech gave him supplies. And well, he's heard that David has been seen, and he wonders why that nobody told him about what was going on, about his covenant with Jonathan and all those kind of things. And so Saul is upset at Ahimelech, and he orders all the priests to be killed. And all of Saul's men refuse to execute the priests, but Doeg is the one who did so. And particularly down in chapter 22 of 1 Samuel, starting in about verse 17, you see that down through verse 19, and they killed all of them and his families, 85 of the priests. And anyway, that's kind of the setting of what's going on. And so David is writing this psalm about that, and about, like, this would have been obviously a very bad day for the priests. It's also a very bad day for David.
Yeah.
Because not only are you finding out that someone who has helped you has been put to death, but how much more unlikely is it for others to help you if they know this is, Saul has basically used Doeg to make an example out of all of them. Okay. So he writes this psalm, Psalm 52, really about Doeg and what he has done. And so the way I've got it broken down is verses, they're all descriptions. Okay, so verses 1 through 4 is David's description of his enemies' sins. And it's the singular, like you'll notice in verse 2, or verse 1, he starts off with Almighty Man, which is singular, but then your tongue, you worker of deceit, you love, all of these are singular words in the Hebrew. So he's talking specifically about Doeg, I think. And then verses 5 through 7 is a description of God's punishment. And then verses 8 and 9, it is a description of David's trust. So even in this difficult time that David is having to undergo, he's still trusting that God is going to take care of not only the wicked individual, but also take care of him. So we talk about, at the very beginning, we talked about some of those key ideas that you see throughout the book of Psalms, that if you count pronouns, and everything, God is mentioned the most. The psalmist is mentioned second most. One of those 6 key ideas was enemies. And, we talked about in our introductory stuff that an enemy of David, or an enemy of the psalmist, whoever that might be, is also an enemy of God, because this is a theocracy. David is the Lord's anointed. And so Doeg is not only an enemy of David, but in doing so, he's an enemy of God. In particular, when you see him doing what he does here, of putting to death all of these priests that are, God's picked the tribe that was going to be the ones that would stand between him and the people. These are the ones, and that's who he has put to death. And these would have been men that typically would have been, not maybe like we would necessarily think of religious leaders or that type of thing as maybe being mild and meek, but they're not the men that are being trained and armed to go to war. They're not the ones that are going to have the same kind of battle gear and that type of thing as him. So it's almost, the way I read it at least, very sarcastic when he says, "Why do you boast of evil, O mighty man?" This mighty man, Doeg, is not really a mighty man. He's a guy that's basically a bully who has killed people that would not and could not defend themselves in a battle like he might have been more able to do as a herdsman. So anyway, he's going to talk about what he's done that's evil. He's going to talk about how that God is going to punish him and take care of him, and then how that at the end he trusts in God to do what God is going to do.
Well, I've got some of these, I don't know if I've got them all. I was trying to mark all the references to God here, and it doesn't seem to matter what kind of psalm that David is writing. there's always the mention of, God is always the centerpiece in some way of what he's writing. And so what he's writing, what he's feeling, what's going on in his life. And of course, the blessed man recognizes the presence of God in their life. And this, every one of these is proving more and more, especially to me, and hopefully to you who are listening in, tuning in, it's just it's so prevalent that this is what the man of God does. This is what the blessed man does, is he puts God at the center of all things in life, no matter what it is that's going on. And so, I look
and even on and even on yours, like there's some pronouns that you haven't done even. So like in verse 5, he will snatch you up, that he is God. And then verse 7, you've got God was strong as ever for him, green tree. Maybe that is all of them. Yeah. But you can just see all of that yellow on the screen, those of you that are watching on YouTube or whatever, just how much that, when things bad happen to David or things don't go his way, his immediate response is to turn to God.
Yeah.
And that's what you see over and over in the Psalms.
Yeah, and we tend to, so many times that, man, Corey, I'm so guilty of this. I sometimes we just get in our head about things, and you tend to just go inside. You tend to rely on self, and you tend to just kind of shrink back, and you're not really hiding, but you're just kind of by yourself, and you're just, I don't know how to describe it, but I think in a lot of ways, and I've experienced this with people as well, that when hard things are going on, no matter what that is, almost our first reaction is to just rely on ourselves, like we can get ourselves through it, or whatever. But David shows us, I mean, it's a first reaction for him to turn to God and to think about God in that time. And so, I'm not going to speak for you. I don't know if you deal with that too, but for me, just I'm a guy that tries to be honest and clear about the struggles that I have, and that is one of those. And so,
and even if I do think about God, it's more in a sense of like Psalm 73 with Asaph saying, "Why have you let the evil prosper, and why have you punished the righteous?" And when I do turn to God, it's often with the wrong kind of. When David turns to God, it's the opposite. I know it looks like the evil got away with this, and the righteous are the ones suffering, but in the end, really, it's going to be the evil man that's going to suffer.
Right. And
to have that kind of perspective and trusting God, and we've talked about before with Job and other things, God doesn't mind our questioning, and as long as we're coming to Him. I'm not saying that Asaph was wrong in Psalm 73. I'm just saying it's just a contrast here of what Asaph immediately goes to God with, of why did you let the wicked win? And David immediately turning to God, and David doesn't always do this, but David does here, turn to God and say, hey, I know what's going to happen here. He thinks he got away with it, but he didn't get away with it.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if it's a good connection point, but it's a good place to think about from a New Testament standpoint. 2 Corinthians, Paul is dealing heavily with a congregation that is not really acting the same way toward him as he's acting toward them. And there's some struggle that's going on there. And that's a time, and Timothy would be the same way. Timothy, who's struggling with the church in Ephesus, probably Titus to a degree as well, but especially Timothy. He's really struggling with people with strong personalities, people who are, basically you have this great, whether it's the church in Corinth or the church in Ephesus during that time, there's a great struggle of pride. There's a great struggle of power. There's a great struggle of prejudice. There's a great struggle of all these different things. And of course, sin is encompassed within all of that. And so to be the recipient in some way of evil that's going on, whether it was directly to you or around you or, whatever. That stuff is hard to go through. And Timothy was really struggling with that. And I really believe that Paul was struggling with that. But what Paul does, which is really beautiful, is the same thing I think that David's doing here within the turmoil of life, is that I realize who I am, and I realize what my faith is, and I realize what I believe. And so no matter what's going on around me, I recognize the presence of God in my life. I recognize the things that I'm doing in my work, in my belief, in my vision. And while David isn't always, there are definitely times in David's life that he's not thinking that, but a majority of his life he is. And of course, from the time of Paul's conversion on, he's very focused on the presence of God in his life, even in times of struggle. And so I guess what I'm getting at is that David's dealing with this type of person. Paul deals with that type of person. Timothy's dealing with these type of people. Maybe it's not to the degree that we have 85 different people murdered, for something, but for people who are, they've got their own agendas, they've got their own, pride and power struggle going on, that are really making life hard, maybe spreading deceit, lies, whatever. There's a lot of trouble and turmoil. I think it's a great example for those that they set within their life to be able to look and to experience God in those times as well. And this seems to be from verses 1 through 4 what where David is going with this. Why do you boast in evil, O mighty man? Like you said, this is a direct quote to, let's just call him Doug, and it's almost like he's staring him right in the face. Oh mighty man, this is what you think you are, but in reality, that's not what you are.
No, and of course, it's probably more. It said that 85 that wore the ephod, so that's 85 priests, but also said to kill their family, their children.
True,
so
yeah.
Who knows how many?
Yeah.
So you think you're a mighty man because it's the equivalent of like somebody going today to, maybe like a lot of these mass murders will do. We'll go to places like schools and churches and whatnot, where people are weaker than you and they're not armed as you are. Does that make you a mighty man because you destroyed people that were weaker than you? Well, of course not. So it's very sarcastically that he's saying that. And the idea that contrasts that in verse 1, that God's love, that covenant love that God has with his people, you may have separated soul from bodies, but you didn't separate right from wrong. You didn't change anything about the way God views you and these priests and whatever. You haven't stopped them and you haven't made yourself to be victorious. All you've done, and that's what he's going to talk about the rest of this first section here, is you've ensured your own downfall is what you've done. You can't attack you can't attack God's people without attacking God. It's kind of like in Acts 9, whenever Jesus strikes Saul down on the road to Damascus, and he says, "Why, Saul, Saul, why persecutest thou me?" Is the King James I've got in my brain. But he never persecuted that we know of. He never directly persecuted Jesus. Maybe he was on the Sanhedrin whenever Jesus was brought to trial. Who knows? But he never, as far as we know, directly persecuted Jesus. But what he was currently doing was persecuting Jesus' bride. You persecute Jesus' bride, you persecute Jesus. You persecute God's people, you persecuted God. You picked the wrong battle to get yourself involved in.
Yeah.
Or the wrong side of the battle, maybe.
The wrong side, yeah. Yeah. I don't know, have you ever seen Avatar?
No.
In the second Avatar movie.
That's like the giant Smurf movie, right?
Yes, the giant blue people Smurf movie. Well, anyway, there's this, whether you like the movies or not, doesn't really matter, but there's there's a little scene in there that I've always thought a lot about. And of course, they have their own deity, and it's just a big, fake world story, whatever. But
Sure.
this girl she feels the presence of their deity in her life, and her dad asked her, well, how does she feel? Or I can't remember exactly how he says it, well, what does it feel like? Or what is the deity? In this case, I think they always refer to her as she, I don't know, but, and her words were mighty. That's how she felt. The presence of deity in her life was that's how she described it, was mighty. And I've always thought that scene, that statement is very powerful, because if you think about God is mighty. He is the completeness of what that word means in every sense. And so there is a great contrast between God, who truly is mighty, and this individual who thinks that he's mighty in his own brain. And that really
boasting in evil.
And we can never, as the people of God, get into a mindset that we are more than we actually are, thinking that we're more powerful, more mighty, more, important than we actually are. And in other words, placing yourself above, God, or in this case, above the priest, above the prophet, above, whatever. We can't do that. We've got to understand our position, our place in life, and that place will never change. There's no possibility. My place could change in a business, in an organization, but it will never change in this life. There is an order, and that order does not change. If you get it in your brain that you think you're somewhere else, well, you're deceiving yourself. And that seems to be where he is. So why do you boast evil, O mighty man? The loving kindness of God endures all day long. But this guy, he's not going to endure all day long. He's going to endure for a short time. So he says, your tongue devises destruction like a sharp razor, a worker of deceit. You love evil more than good, falsehood more than speaking what is right. You love all words that devour, O deceitful tongue. It sounds like David knew exactly what he wanted to say to this man.
Yeah, and all of that started, he talks so much about the tongue, it makes you think of James chapter 3, but all of it started, if you go back to the text in Samuel, it all starts with the report that he brought. And it wasn't exactly, what he said, wasn't exactly what happened. If you go 1 Samuel 22, he said, I saw the son of Jesse coming to Nob to Elimelech, the son of Atab. He inquired of the Lord for him and gave him provisions and gave him the sword of Goliath, the Philistine. Well, that's kind of true, but it's a deceitful in the sense of, if you remember the story from the previous chapter, Ahimelech really struggled with this. This was not something that like Ahimelech just did without thinking. And when they bring Ahimelech before Saul, he's going to try to defend his actions, but Doug gave a very limited, according to the text, a very limited description of what's actually happened. And that is what caused, he says, your tongue plots destruction like a sharp razor. Well, all of that began with what he said about Ahimelech and David and what went on there, and lying more than speaking what is right. And one of the things we've pointed out in other places, that term Selah means to pause. And the reason you pause is to think about what was just said. So think about that. He loves lying more than speaking what is right. Yeah. The old expression, guy that was like a second daddy to me, Joe Smith, used to always say he'd rather climb a tree and tell you a lie than stand on the ground and tell you the truth. Well, there's people like that just would rather say false things about others, hurtful things about others, than they would to even examine the truth, because it's about them. Words that devour, deceitful tongue. So, he doesn't really talk about necessarily what he did as far as the killing of the people, but it all began with what he said. And that's what led to everything else. Just like so many things in our lives, it's not, no one wakes up in the morning and says, I'm going to, rob the bank, or wakes up in the morning and says, I'm going to have an affair, or whatever. It's a slow process, a number of smaller bad decisions usually that lead us to that place. But all of those really expose what's at the core of one's heart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And sometimes, just to kind of play off of that, sometimes we can talk ourselves into believing something.
Mm-hmm.
We can talk ourselves into an action, into a certain behavior. And that typically, well, I think in a lot of cases, I don't want to say typically because that would make it sound like it all the time, and I don't know that I could say that, but I think in a lot of cases, at least, a negative thought is what sparks this reaction, because the negative thought begins to feed itself. And when you have that thought and you begin to essentially talk to yourself about it, you talk yourself into it. Yep. And when you talk yourself into it, well, now that's the mindset. And to change that sometimes is extremely hard. And that could be about a person, that could be about a congregation, that could be about a leadership. How many leaderships within the Lord's church? Now, I'm not saying every leadership. When I say leadership, I'm talking about an eldership, or even a men's group, whatever the leadership looks like within your congregation, whether you have elders or not. I don't agree with every decision that every eldership makes or every leadership makes, and I don't think that we're supposed to. I mean, we're all different. We have different mindsets. Maybe we do things one way or another, but just because you don't agree with something doesn't mean that those are bad men. How many leaderships have been attacked based on this concept, that you didn't like something and then all of a sudden you had a negative thought, or you heard something from someone else and then that's what fed it? So this is how powerful the tongue can be, whether it's and this is internally and externally. So the tongue is generated, the words are generated from what, like you said, what's on the heart, what's in the mind. It don't work on its own. And James does a wonderful job explaining that with the ship and the rudder, with the horse and the reins, or the bit, and even, it's a little bit different illustration, but the fire that started with just a little spark or a flame, or however it says that, there's something behind the action. There's something behind the motivation. There's something behind what's going on. And so the tongue, from an internal and external standpoint, is a reflection of the mind behind it. And if we allow ourselves to listen to these things, or we feed ourselves these things, then we can really do a lot of divisive damage to the brotherhood, to our congregation, or it goes farther than that, family, work, whatever. But in verse 2, your tongue devises destruction. That right there is a very, very powerful statement. Like a sharp razor, a worker of deceit. It says, going to verse 4, you love all words that devour. This is, deceitful tongue. This is a guy that has a bad personality. He's got bad intentions. He is somebody who has fed his thought process and his perceptions and his pride and his power, and now we're seeing the results of that within his life.
Yeah, how do you get to the point that you justify killing 85 priests, men of God? You get to the point where you're calling evil good and good evil, and that's what he's done. He's deceived himself as much as anything.
Yeah. Yeah, so that takes us into verses 5 through 7, which is the description of God's punishment. but God will break you down forever. He will snatch you up and tear you away from your tent and uproot you from the land of the living. The righteous will see and fear and will laugh at him, saying, Behold, the man who would not make God his refuge, but trusted in the abundance of his riches and was strong in his evil desire. So pretty good description of who he was. And of course, again, we go back to the order of things. God's first, you're not. And for some people, that's a harsh reality check.
Yep. And verse 5, here's the best translation of verse 5, you die. I mean, that's basically what he says it in a couple of different ways there, but then Selah. So stop and think about that. What good? He's going to talk about, all of in verse 7, he wouldn't make God his refuge. He was trusting in riches, all of those material things, your opinion of yourself over God, your opinion of possessions over God, all of that. When you die, what good does that do you? So it's kind of like when the Lord tells the rich man, this night your soul will be required of you. Then who shall these possessions be that you've acquired? What good's it going to do you? And so God's going to take care of you. It's going to be such a disastrous thing. He says that the righteous, number one, they're going to see and fear. They're going to say, well, we shouldn't do this. We shouldn't be in the same camp as that guy. They're wanting to make Saul and Doug are wanting to make an example out of Ahimelech so that no one else will help David. But what's going to happen is it's going to be right the opposite, is that people are going to see you don't want to side with the unrighteous king of Saul. So number one, they're going to see and fear. Number two, they're going to laugh at him. How about that? You've got it worded see and fear. That's fine. Number three, they're going to laugh at him. And they're going to, instead of holding him and look at what Doug did. He's a mighty man. They're not going to say he's a mighty man. They're going to laugh at him.
Yeah.
This is one of those, to get back to the Andy Griffith show, one of those where Barney Fife is pulling up his belt, doing the sniff and all. Well, and meanwhile, everybody in town's laughing at him because he's not really who he thinks he is. Yeah. That's what he's put himself in that position. And the reason why, verse 7, is because, he didn't make God his refuge. He trusted in his riches, and he says was strong in his evil desire. That it's such a, a harsh statement about him. The ESV says he sought refuge in his own destruction.
Yeah.
And basically it's, you've made your bed, now you're going to lay in it. What's happening is because you chose the wrong path.
Yeah. That's, you looking at it from this side, you feel bad for him. That may not seem right, but the Psalms are all about meditation. It's all about thinking about it. It is sad to me when a person is so consumed with a certain idea of themselves. They see themselves as a certain way. They think of themselves in a certain way. In this case, in an evil way. Thinks he's better than he is. Everybody around him does not have that view, and they're laughing at him. They're looking at him. And this is not to his face. There's no way it's to his face. It's behind his back. I mean, you have to feel bad for a person like that because they're so blinded by their own pride and personal ambition that they can't see anything. It's like, of course, different concept, but the same at the same time that, when Paul writes in 2 Corinthians that the veil's basically over the face of those who are, following the law of Moses, the letter of the law, they can't see. But in Christ, the veil's lifted and they can see. Well, while that's referencing a different thing, the concept is the same. They are blinded by their own pride. and how they view themselves, and they can't see anything different while everybody else is going, you have fooled yourself. And there are so many people that fall into that. And I know I've fallen into that for sure. Maybe not in an evil way like this, but you think of yourself in a certain way. And upon that realization that you're not what you think you are, sometimes your world can come crashing down. And so to really see yourself in the right way, I think is very important. And while we can look at this guy and hate on him, and of course, everything that's being said here is true, at the same time, we can feel for a person like that because they are extremely lost in a lot of ways.
Yep. And evidently that was kind of his character anyway, Doug's, sure. Because going back to 1 Samuel 22, near the end of it, whenever Abiathar tells David about what happened, in verse 22, he said, I knew on that day when Doug the Edomite was there that he would surely tell Saul. I knew when I saw him there, I knew the first thing he was going to do is run to Saul and tell him all about it.
Yeah.
So evidently it was well known that he was one who was siding with Saul, who was, or at the very least was one who was, how can I use circumstances or information to better me and help me? That was what happened. And unfortunately, we don't really know anything about what happened to him, because this is really the 1 Samuel 22:22, outside of obviously Psalm 52 here that we're reading now. That's the last that we hear about him.
Yeah.
So, but Psalm 52, I think you wonder when you get done. This is another one of those, you read what happens in the narrative form and you're wondering, well, what happened did he get away with this? Well, then you get to Psalm 52 and you're like, oh, no, he didn't get away with it.
No, he didn't. He didn't. But don't you love I love this statement here in 1 Samuel 22, verse 23. Of course, what you just read with Abiathar, David's talking to him. I knew that day that he would go to Saul, and I have brought about death every person. That's how David feels. But he tells him, he says, stay with me. Do not be afraid, for he who seeks my life seeks your life, for you are safe with me. I think that's a pretty cool, David's got the right mindset from a physical standpoint and a spiritual standpoint. Yep. He is a leader among leaders. And
yep.
Again, we go back to that statement. He's a man after God's own heart. And his consistent, David fails like all of us do. So, it's not fair of us to always just go to one time in his life and say, well, you're a bad person. No, he did something wrong and he got through it. And that's our responsibility. But David consistently looks to God in his life. And physically or spiritually, David is equipped. No matter how hard it may be for him, he's equipped to get through the stuff. And, when you're talking about the blessed man, you're talking about a man of God, somebody who is a leader for the Lord. And I view David as that. And that's what we need to be. When people are going through hard times or going through struggles, it's okay. Stick with me. We're going to get through this. We're safe through this. And what I mean by that is whatever you're going to go through, we're going to physically make it through together, and spiritually, we're going to make it through together. So in the end, we're going to be where we need to be. And I think that that's a really powerful thing that David says, however he actually meant it there, probably more in a physical way, but to make application, I think that could be pretty powerful. And by the way, I've done a terrible job at doing the pauses, so I'm glad you keep bringing these the Selah out, because I'm just reading and I'm not paying attention over there. So
no, you're fine.
I need to be more dramatic about this and really make the pause. And so,
well, if you look at these last two verses, this last section, it goes right to what you're saying about David and where he's at.
Yeah.
So that I love this very first. I'm like a green olive tree in the house of God.
Yeah.
Well, automatically I'm thinking back to Psalm 1, which we started all this with. You know, he's the righteous man, the God-approved man is one. He's like a tree planted by the still waters. He bears his fruit in his season. What's he saying here? I'm a green olive tree. I'm healthy. I'm productive. I'm producing fruit because that's where his heart is. I trust in the steadfast love of God forever and ever. Well, if you go back to verse 1, you ought to draw a circle around the steadfast love of God endures all the day. And then you ought to draw a line down to the verse 7, the second line of it, but trusted in the abundance of his riches, and draw a circle around that. And then go down to verse 8, I trust in the steadfast love of God forever and ever. See, David began this psalm by saying, God's going to win, and God's covenant love that he has for his people is not going to be broken. You can do whatever you want to, put people to death, kill people. Nothing's going to change that.
Yeah.
Now, in light of that, you've got Doug who puts his trust in riches. Then you've got David who puts his trust back in that steadfast love of the Lord that we saw in verse 1. It's going to last forever and ever, which is what is another way of saying it endures all the day, you know.
Right.
So David says, even though what they wanted to, you might think of this, Doug, what he did as a terrorist attack. He wanted to inflict terror in David and his men, and his mighty men are. You go back to 1 Samuel chapter 23, they can either go face the Philistines or they can stay there in Judah. And they say, we're afraid to stay in Judah. We'd rather go face the Philistines than deal with our own people here, you know. So the mighty men are afraid, but David, like you're saying, has that the right perspective and attitude. I'm trusting in the steadfast love. What's the worst thing they're going to do? Kill me? That doesn't change my relationship with God.
Yeah.
You know, so he's going to take care of me. Now, as you said, probably he's thinking more in a physical way, but nonetheless, and then that confidence of, I trust him. So that's why verse 9, I'm going to thank you forever because you've done it. I'm going to thank you forever because your love, steadfast love, lasts forever. And then I will wait for your name for its good in the presence of the godly. So, you know, none of this turned out the way that I would have wanted, not in my timeline, but certainly I know God in his time is going to take care of all this.
Yeah. You know, that verse 8 and 9, I love, you know, David's got himself in the right spot. I am like a green olive tree in the house of God. I trust in loving kindness of God forever and ever. I will give you thanks forever because you have done it. And I will wait on your name, for it is good in the presence of your godly ones. So he knows where he's at. And he's consistently making this, you know, you're the leader of my life. But here's what I really love, how he starts this. But as for me, I automatically think of Joshua 24:15. When we compare David and Joshua, two warriors, two leaders for God, one leading into the promised land, one leading as God's king, both of them make a statement. And here's what, you know, and I know that we've all read this, I don't know how many times, but Joshua 24:15, you know, this is Joshua's last sermon before he passes away. Really 14, start there. Now, therefore, fear the Lord and serve him in sincerity and truth, and put away the gods which your fathers served beyond the river and in Egypt, and serve the Lord. If it is disagreeable in your sight to serve the Lord, choose for yourselves today whom you will serve, whether the gods of your fathers served, which were beyond the river, or the gods of the Amorites in whose land you are living. Notice this, but he says, and this is New American Standard Version here, he says, but as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. Now, everybody, you know, we always take that phrase and we basically focus on we will serve the Lord, which is great. But this is Joshua's statement saying, you can do whatever you want. But for me, this is where I'm at. And this, I think, is the same concept for David. David is looking at this guy. He's looking at Doug. He's going, you can do all these things. You can have a deceitful tongue. You can kill these people. You can think however you want. But as for me, this is where I'm at.
And a similar statement in the fact that everything about this, all those that you got in green there, I am, I trust, I will. It's not because David, he's quick to point that. It's not because I'm such a good guy.
Sure, yeah.
I'm a green olive tree because I'm in the house of God.
Yeah.
I'm trusting because of the steadfast love of God. I'm thinking because you have done it. I'm waiting because your name is good in the presence of the God. You know, it's all about God. It's not about Saul killed his thousands, David killed his tens of thousands. No, David would say, it's not about me, it's about him. Yeah. And even like, you know, we're talking about the man after God's own heart, which God calls him. But part of that is his recognition of, you know, this isn't about me. This is about the Lord. And you mentioned Joshua. We're actually studying through Joshua in our Sunday morning Bible class here. And I made the point the other day that almost every commentary or book you read talks about what a great military leader that Joshua was. Mm-hmm. I think he was a terrible military leader. All right, we're going to attack this city. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to walk around it and blow some horns.
Yeah.
You know, that's not at West Point, they will never teach that military strategy. He was a great spiritual leader.
Yeah.
Because he says what you said, we're going to trust God. We're going to do it God's way. And every time they did it God's way, no matter how silly it might have sounded, we're going to do it God's way, and we're going to be okay, you know. And anyway, that's David's point here. It's all about God. I'm okay, not because of me, but because of God.
Well, and then I know we need to probably be winding this down, but you know, as Joshua being one of the spies that go in, and him and Caleb, they come back. 10 say, there ain't no way we can go in there. Here's what these people are like. Here's what we're like in their eyes, blah, 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 blah. And then all of a sudden, you know, these two young bucks come up there and they're like, let's take this. God's with us. We're all good. That was his mindset. There's a reason that Joshua was chosen to lead the people. And there's a reason that whenever he went, everything they did up until they faced Jericho was all spiritual. They placed the stones in the river. He wrote down the word of the Lord. And then they take, you know, every one of them's looking at him probably like he's crazy. You want us to do what with Jericho? Nobody can take this city. He's like, yeah, we can. We can do it pretty easy. And, you know, so, and this is how David is. I mean, even David as he is God's man, and he's being led here, he's got the same kind of mindset. Yep. And so if God will be with him, David knows that he can do all things. And, you know, we see that same thing being said a few different times. You know, with God, nothing is impossible. You know, within the Gospels, I think Elizabeth said that, and or maybe I think it was Elizabeth. I'd have to check that. But, you know, that phrase is in there. And Paul even says, you know, he can do far more abundantly than all that we can ask or all that we can think. And I believe that's in Ephesians. And, you know, there's just an understanding of a true spiritual person to understand God's ability. And when we look at verse 8 and 9, the green is always followed by the yellow. As far as what we're looking at, it's always followed by the yellow. So meaning David is always looking to God. I am, I trust, I will, you know, because of you. And that's a sign of a blessed man. So.
Yep. Yeah. And that's all it takes. No matter how mighty you are, no matter how strong you are, you know, again, the moment we begin to think that we're mighty, as he kind of makes fun of him at the beginning of this psalm in verse 1, the minute we begin to boast of ourselves, that's when we're headed down the wrong road. And what matters is our realization that, you know, we need to put our trust in God. And when we're surrounded by troubles, we need to let the Lord be our fortress and our refuge. And, you know, whatever is going on in life, it ought to, instead of running away from him or trying to figure it out ourselves, it ought to make us want to go to him and be in his presence even more. And that's what he wants, is for us to turn to him in those times.
That's right. That's right. Well, Corey, thank you so much for our time together. I love spending time with you and be able to think on Scripture. And we've looked at this, and hopefully, what we're doing with the Psalms is an example for you of how you can look at the Psalms. You can look at it from a historical standpoint and from a present standpoint in your own life. And what does it mean? What does it mean in life? What does it mean for me? What does it mean in regard to character and love and trust and all that stuff? Because it really does apply in all stages of life, no matter when, what year it is, it always applies. And so, to meditate on Scripture, think about the meaning of it within context and for you is really important. And we hope that what we're doing, maybe inspires you or helps you to look at the Psalms in that way, and really all the text in that way, to break it down, spend some time. We're not rushing through this. And just seeing how it applies to us and helps us. And I know every week that we do this, it helps me, and we sure hope it helps you. We're really grateful that you have spent your time with us, and we are. I've been thinking about it the whole time, Corey, ever since we mentioned it. Next week we're coming live from the smokers. That's what we're doing, and so that's going to be a lot of fun. And so hopefully you'll be able to tune in with us when we post it. Of course, I'll probably work to go ahead and post it on Wednesday. So maybe a day early next week. So you can check it out then or whenever. But that'll be a lot of fun being at the smoker and doing the podcast and thinking on these things in the Psalms. But we do hope that you will join us next week for another episode of the Untied Podcast as we're continuing on through the Psalms. And next week we'll be looking at Psalm 54, which we're entitling Help from Above, and that'll be connected to 1 Samuel chapter 23. So you can tune in and check all that out. As always, we're grateful for your time with us, and when we pray that the Lord is blessing you in your daily walk with Him, and that you're growing in every aspect of your spiritual life. And tune in, like, share, subscribe, follow, help us to grow this podcast as we hope that it will help many, many people. So until next time, thank you for joining us. We love you. We appreciate you. And until next week, stay untied.